Hi, thank you, Leah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first session on the second day of our Wikidata Data Reuse Days event. My name is Alan Ang. I'm the Partner Relationship Manager for Wikimedia Deutschland. And today we have invited our exciting speakers to this Wikidata for Visual and Performing Arts session. So each speaker has a maximum of 10 minutes to present, and I will ping you 2 minutes before the time's up. And then we have 10 minutes left over for questions and answer. So don't worry if there's not enough time for Q&A. Please write down all your questions in the Q&A section in Etherpad. The link is in the chat, if I'm not wrong. Otherwise, I'll resend it again, and our speakers will answer them later. So without much further ado, let me introduce you to Gregory from Footlight, and he will kick us off for this session. Gregory, please.
Yes, bonjour. Hello, everyone. So I'm Gregory Saumier-Finch. I work at Culture Creates here in Montreal in Canada, and I'm going to present to you the Footlight console. I'm going to share my screen right now. Second. There we go. Okay, so the Footlight console is a tool for arts organizations to create linked open data about their performing arts events in Canada. It uses data from arts data to reconcile entities. And what Footlight does basically is it crawls events on web pages, reconciles entities with arts data, and provides a user interface for humans to review the data. Now, the linked open data output from Footlight includes Wikidata IDs. So this is really important. Wikidata IDs are linked bidirectionally with the arts data IDs. And this ecosystem basically enables arts data to focus on storing event and event metadata. And it reuses data from Wikidata to enrich information about artists, organizations, places, and works from Wikidata. So really the two were working together. Let me demo Footlight. This is the console to review the structured data. And I'm going to just quickly sign in. There are many different websites. I'm going to select a particular website. And these are the upcoming events. Footlight focuses on upcoming events. So it's mainly what is coming up. And I'm going to select an event and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to select this event, Emmanuel Bilodeau at Théâtre Gilles Vigneault in Quebec. So here on the screen, you can see that there is the actual web page that is being used as the source of the structured data. The result of structuring the data from the web page is on the right. And you can do things like set the location, confirm the location, the attendance mode, and things like performed by and organized by. Now, I'm going to highlight those two because typically when you structure data on an event using schema.org, you would include information about titles, descriptions, but it's not common yet to link to identities for the performers, etc. So what we allow you to do here is use a reconciliation process, and we actually work with the W3C Reconciliation Service work group, who is defining an API to reconcile entities together. So for example, here, it's already been resolved, but if I were to manually reconcile this performer, I could manually add the performer by searching here, and this reconciliation is happening with arts data in the background. So I could link to this person. So I'm going to remove that, and what this enables us to do is all of these fields, the dates, the description, the links, are then structured in JSON LD. And I'll just show you the output, for example, of the JSON LD. And you have in many places, whether it's location, the performer, Wikidata IDs. So these Wikidata IDs, of course, are connected to Wikidata and allow for this linked open data ecosystem to really provide a lot of value. And what is important with the identifiers, as I mentioned earlier, is that they are linked back as well to arts data. So if I scroll down to the bottom of all these identifiers, we see here that there are arts data identifiers that link back to arts data. So arts data and Wikidata are interlinked. And again, the main purpose of this is so that arts data can focus on event structured data and really reuse data from Wikidata to enrich the information. But here you can see, for example, additional upcoming events which this artist is performing in. And that underlines, I think, the main data reuse and the data ecosystem that we're creating with Footlight. So that covers the basic presentation. I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Gregory. So, okay, so this covers the basic presentation of Footlight, and Gregory will also be presenting to us culture in time as well. So thank you. Do you want to jump into the next presentation, Gregory?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, fantastic.
So culture in time is actually a tool that was developed as part of the GLAM hackathon in 2020 and 2021. It is a playground for aggregating and visualizing performing arts metadata from multiple sources, such as Wikidata, so reusing Wikidata data, also reusing arts data, and Culture in Time can also pull in data from other Sparkle endpoints and even structured data that does not have a Sparkle endpoint, such as MusicBrainz data. So I'm going to demo now the Culture in Time version 3. This is a new version that we have not yet put live. There's a version 2 that is live, but version 3, we really rethought a lot how to load and reuse data from different data sources. So I'm going to jump in. So you're viewing now Culture in Time version 3, which is running on my local machine here. And they're basically productions that are brought in from various data sources, such as this first one here, and spotlights, which group together productions and allow you to show a grouping of productions on a theme or a particular attribute. So I'll just show you what a production looks like right now. So if I select this one, we have the structured data behind this production with at the top a very brief upper ontology. And then we're displaying the actual properties from the original data source. So these are the Wikidata properties that are getting displayed. Oh, Christine is not seeing the screen share. Okay, perhaps someone, okay, good. I'll continue. I'm sorry, Christine, maybe someone could help her with that. So the way Culture in Time works is
Gregory, we can't hear you. I'm not sure if it's me or...
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Was I muted from the beginning?
No, only just for a very brief moment. So you're back now again.
Very good. So the way Culture in Time can pull in performing arts productions is by allowing you to create your own Sparkle. You just need to create an account and you can add a Sparkle. So let me show you an example. So here I've created a Sparkle for choreographic works on Wikidata. And initially, in the first versions in the GLAM hackathons, it was a very complicated Sparkle. And everyone knows that Sparkle can very quickly get to be complicated and quite unwieldy. What we're doing in this version 3 of Culture and Time is making the Sparkle very, very simple, something that everyone's familiar with, a service with a select and a very simple set of attributes. So what this will do is it will pull in all of the choreographic works from Wikidata. This Sparkle creates a list of URIs, and then each URI is loaded through content negotiation. And that's something I'm curious to see how others are using. But the result of this type of query, I can now view over time some of these performing arts productions that are in Wikidata. Now, I'll just show you a quick example of another data source, so arts data. So I can do a similar import from arts data choreography. In this case, it's again a very simple Sparkle query, and each URI that is the result of this Sparkle query will be loaded as a graph and come with all of its properties from the original data source. So in this case, I forgot to mention that you can map to an upper ontology so that at least the performing arts productions, the common properties can be viewed across the different data sources. So, you know, common ontology is there, really has a top level view that allows the entities to be included together. So if I view this list here, I can see various performing arts choreographies from Canada, and in this case, particularly from Quebec. And what is, now that I have loaded data, the interesting tool that Culture and Time presents is the ability to create a spotlight. So what do we mean by spotlight? A spotlight is really a way to group together a collection of performing arts productions. So I had the idea of creating one on Romeo and Juliet in time. So both past and upcoming. Past mainly by using data from Wikidata, and upcoming by using data from arts data. And so if I show you, let me get back to the editing. If I show you how this was created, I basically can choose to create a spotlight with a Sparkle again, or with just entering a few parameters like start, end date, query, and which data sources. In this case, I wanted to use a Sparkle to create my spotlight. So in the Sparkle, I'm using briefly the upper ontology to say, find me all of the performing arts productions. So that's excluding people entities, place entities, which are also loaded in. So show me just the performing arts productions that are based on the play by Shakespeare called Romeo and Juliet. And I'm including, so I'm enlarging this a bit. So I'm doing a union with productions that have in the title a form of Romeo and Juliet. So this now, if I run this spotlight, I'm able to view a subset of performing arts productions that are inspired by Romeo and Juliet. And if I select to see the details of one in particular, I can see that I have automatically a lot of data that's been pulled in from the data source, as well as the information that's based on Romeo and Juliet, which is the play by Shakespeare. But in another case, West Side Story is interesting because there is no reference of Romeo and Juliet in the title or description, but it also has been based on Romeo and Juliet. So starting to get more into the present, I have here a particular event that is actually upcoming. So this is going to be shown, premiered in a couple of weeks. You can actually follow the link here to this upcoming event. And I believe there are tickets available. So if you want to go and see this interpretation of Romeo and Juliet, it is available. So that basically concludes my presentation of Culture in Time. Maybe it's a place where people will be able to see how their data can be grouped together, can be displayed. We're working on making the presentation even more user-friendly, so less technical. And we hope it'll be a playground for those of you interested in exploring and mapping data models together. This is a spotlight of the Spectacle des Marionnettes that I believe will be presented shortly by Jean-Robert. But if there are any other questions regarding Culture in Time, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gregory. Very interesting presentation for Culture in Time and Footlight. Next up, can I invite Jean-Robert to come up and do his presentation? Maybe you have to, yes, correct.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jean-Robert Bisaillon. I'm working with the Association Québécoise des Marionnettistes. And so I'll show you what we've done. Thanks very much, Greg, for your presentation. And I'm really anxious to be able to join in and feed more data into your infrastructure here. I'll be sharing my screen. Here we go. So tell me once you actually see it. Is it?
We have it. We see it. Thank you.
It's fine. Okay, thank you. So first, I've just added the description that you have on the general programming of the Wikidata Reuse Days. So it's really the resume of what we're trying to do. So I'll be telling you more here. So what we had to do as a first phase of this project was to prototype some sort of model, and we had to model the puppeteer domain, which is a subgenre of theater, and there weren't much way to do it at the starting point. But we actually, like, what is the final goal of our project is that there is a European portal for the Arts de la Marionnette, for puppeteer art, that is being built right now. And we heard about this initiative and had to find ways to actually merge our way of conceiving puppeteer art in Quebec and Canada with the European way of seeing it and modeling it. And we've thought that actually using Wikidata was the best way to kind of align our visions both in Europe and in Canada on this issue, because we were kind of starting from a blank page. So we've worked throughout the process. We've worked with Capacoa, which is a performing arts diffuseur. I forgot the Presentators Association in Canada. They've worked on a common model, and probably you guys, most people attending this morning, might have heard of Capacoa's linked digital feature. Greg and Caitlin from Culture Creates and Arts That have been involved there. And we've kind of used their wiki project for performing arts model, and in order to align our own lexicology, our own semantics with theirs, so that we would make sure that there wouldn't be any clash at some point between our conception and theirs. So we're now trying to map the European portal concept, which uses FRBRU and SCOS RDF. And we're at some point, the efforts we're going to have to make is to actually batch write into the European portal in FRBRU and SCOS. We'll have to batch write our own data into their database, which is created on a library, an integrated library system. And at starting time, we didn't have their data model. So we made the decision of using Wikidata to bridge our concept with theirs. And essentially the theater companies that have been participating in the initiative have used Google Sheets, and we've done some open refine analysis and reconciliation, so that at some point we would be able to translate the puppeteer's language into Wikidata language. And we did that because we knew that using Wikidata would provide us a sustainable database that we would be able to reuse throughout the project in the course of time. And for the same reason, we've used Wikimedia Commons also to upload our puppets images. So this is an example of one of the pictures that we're taking throughout the project that was uploaded on Wikimedia Commons. We've done our credentials. We've added the logos of our financial bodies, and we've modeled Superclass's creative work. So essentially puppets. We've modeled individual, so creators, contributors, and puppeteer, legal entities, companies, organization, institution, and what we call creative work puppet show or oeuvre spectacle, which are the puppet shows themselves. And we will soon be modeling festival and eventsery. And essentially, our prototype takes the form of a Sparkle query at this point, which was sufficient to actually demonstrate the work we had done and show our financial supporters and contributors to the portal that the effort was worthwhile, was worthsome, and that we could actually continue in that vein. So essentially, that's what we've done. Another example, and so if you have access to our website and to the PAM Lab, which is the European portal, whenever you need to. I'll stop my screen sharing if I can find the button.
Thank you.
I can't. Am I? Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jean-Robert. And so please feel free to ask any questions you may have with regards to our presenters' presentations in the notes Etherpad. And our presenters will answer them shortly, and we will do the Q&A later as well. So next up, we have our last presenter for today's session is the openArt browser. Is one of my personal favorite use case by Professor Dr. Bernhard. So let me hand over to Bernhard, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and please avoid the professor and doctor. I'm Bernhard. Can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your screen.
Wonderful. So openArt browser is also one of my favorite projects because I love arts, and this is an application that wants to fascinate with arts using open data, using Wikidata. So it's powered by Wikidata, as you can see here, and completely powered by Wikidata. And the idea, the philosophy basically is like strolling through a virtual museum. And the idea is finding things without searching for them. So just let you flow through the museum and find interesting things. And straight on the starting page of openArt browser, you can look at individual artworks. You can look at artists like Leslie Ward, like movements, like Impressionism, types of artworks, like paintings, for example, locations like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, material like paper, genres like history painting, and motifs like, in this case, the Virgin Mary. And here on the bottom line, you see a timeline of various movements, and you can click on individual movements that they're changing. Now let's have a look at individual artworks. Let's look at, this one is coming up. It's a wonderful Manet painting. We can view the paintings in high resolution. So Wikimedia allows really interesting close-up shots of the movements, and you get all kinds of information about the paintings, multimedia information. So we include texts from Wikipedia, of course, and then videos about Manet in this case, or Impressionism, and then all kinds of information about this painting. So it's the genre is landscape art, the movement is Impressionism, the material is oil point, the type is painting, and the motifs, and this is quite interesting, what is everything that is being depicted on this painting, like goldsmithing, cherries. Actually, can you find the cherries in the painting? Bark. Actually, I don't know what a bark is. We could have a look at barks. It's a boat type. Oh yes, a bark. I see. And you see that allows you to find interesting things. You get an idea of the dimension of the painting, quite a large one. And a feature which I like a lot is the related artworks. So we depict all kinds of artworks that are somehow related to this one, but not only by the same artist, but according to all other dimensions. And by selecting one of them, we see on the bottom highlighted what are the commonalities between the Manet painting on the top and this Betsiba bathing. So there's a toe, it's barefoot, nudity actually, sitting, grass, dress, woman, oil paint on canvas, genre art, nude, and painting. And now we can stroll, so to speak, from one interesting aspect to the other. So for example, the bark, we had a look at the bark, or bathing, nudity, we leave out, the broadleaf tree. Let's watercourse. Let's go to watercourse, and we have 268 artworks on watercourses, and we can now, here is the Manet painting we had to look at before, and we look at this Madonna Jan van Eyck painting here. And so we can stroll from one to the next, right? Now, interesting, we can look at the movement, the Flemish primitives, get all kinds of information about the movement here, from Wikipedia again, several videos about the movement, a timeline where we see the Flemish primitives from 1420 to 1540, all kinds of information. And it's actually interesting, it's fun, and also I would, from my point of view, very, very pleasing to look at the artworks. Now, having said that, is finding without searching. Of course, in openArt browser, you should also be able to search concretely. And we have implemented an intelligent search with a semantic autocompletion. So semantic means that I can type some letters, MO for example, and I get artworks like the Mona Lisa, for example. I get motifs like mountains. I got like locations like Moabit, it's part of Berlin, artists like Claude Monet, Piet Mondrian, and other artists. And now we can move to, for example, Piet Mondrian as the artist, and we get all kinds of information. He's this characteristic style of Mondrian's with timelines and 568 artworks of his, which we can inspect, scroll through, for example, move down here. Hundreds of artworks by Mondrian. Now, this is openArt browser very briefly. If you're interested in an overview, you can also look at all genres, all movements, for example, like Baroque, German Renaissance, Art Nouveau, Dutch Golden Age, etc. So you have 400 movements being depicted. Yeah. So much as a short live demo. Going back to my presentation slides, one look behind the scenes. So we have 7 dimensions, as you noted for the exploring artworks. The artworks are in the center. We have nearly 700,000 artworks. We have the artists like Leonardo da Vinci, here Mona Lisa depicted. We have 400 movements, 600 genres like portrait, 1,200 types like painting, 1,000 materials like oil paint, 50,000 motifs like mountains in this case, and nearly 40,000 locations like the Louvre Museum. One look at the software architecture. The openArt browser application is an Angular web application that is taking the data from an Elasticsearch server. And the Elasticsearch server has an extremely good performance. As you could see, it's working very fast. And for some screens we are showing, we're doing up to 30 requests to the Elasticsearch server, and you can't really notice the performance. So it's very fast. So why is it so fast? And because we prepare the data, the Wikidata data, for fast access for this web application. We extract the data regularly, once a week in this case. We call it semantic ETL. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So we extract the data using PyWikibot from Wikidata. Takes about 15 hours. This extraction and semantic enhancement process, and then load it into the Elasticsearch server so that we can have such a good performance. Now, finally, a few lessons learned. Wikidata is an extremely rich data resource. I mean, 750,000 arts entities is just enormous. The data quality varies. You always get individual errors, as you know, in Wikipedia, Wikidata. So, for example, when I was preparing the slides, there was one joke in the Mona Lisa. The blogger Terence Eden was put, maybe himself or somebody else, himself as another author, artist of the Mona Lisa next to Leonardo da Vinci. This has been fixed, obviously, and now with the new crawling, the data is correct again. But you get those kinds of individual errors. You also get some kind of inconsistencies. For example, portrait, which is a genre, is also sometimes tagged as a movement, sometimes tagged as a type, sometimes even tagged as a motif, which is sort of inconsistent. And you can also find those inconsistencies by looking at openArt browser. And the type hierarchy, I hope that it would be much better to do things like I search for animals and then get paintings where horses are depicted, or I would like to search for reptiles and get paintings with crocodiles depicted, or lizards. I was a bit disappointed. The subclass of hierarchy was really not usable, very inconsistent and sometimes wrong, so that we are actually not using this, presenting this to the user finally. The data access we implemented using PyWikibot when we started. We used the object access, so accessed every individual object. resulted in a performance of a runtime of more than 7 days for the crawling. So we optimized performance a lot there by chunk reads and got it now down to, as I said, about 15 hours. What if I could present a wish to the implementers, what I would like to have is some SPARQL bulk queries with a pagination, so that I can say, give me the next 1,000 objects, or 100 objects, or 500 objects, according to this SPARQL bulk query, so that we can pull this and a good documentation of this. So maybe Lydia, you can talk something about this in your talk. That's about my presentation.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful presentation by our speakers for today. So we have some time, and I'm going to read out some of the questions and possibly answers as well. And for our speakers, you can always look at the questions in Etherpad and fill in the answers yourself. So first up, we have a question for Footlight. Well, you mentioned upcoming events, performances. Is there a workflow for past 20 years or so events or performances? Thanks for answering. So the question was from a perspective of a researcher. So yes, Kathleen has answered the question. She says that past events are there for a period of time. As we develop these tool and arts data, we intend to create an archive for past events that can be accessible for certain use cases. So we don't have events from 20 years ago as we started this project the last few years. At this time, the primary goal of Footlight is to help arts organizations improve discoverability of the upcoming events, which is very important, yeah, rather than research of past events. That said, we hope to develop an archive section to serve the needs of those interested in the past. Smiley face. So we have a question for Culture in Time. Can you share what was inspired you to create Culture in Time? Was there a problem you were trying to solve? So the answer we have was that we first developed Culture in Time at GlamHack 2020 with Bit Estimate, with the goal to create a culture calendar using existing link open data on past and future productions, venues, artists, and works. Wow. Since that time, it's evolved to be more of a playground that we hope will support several different kinds of users, for example, researchers, arts organizations, etc. We had another chance to develop it at GlamHack 2021, and again this year, Gregory added many of the features he showed us today. Wonderful. So the problem they had was showing people a real-world use case of link open data so they could better understand how to work with data and how you could do with it. Well, I believe that answers the question. If not, you can feel free to add more questions afterwards. So on Culture in Time, one of our participants said he or she liked the idea of user-submitted SPARQL, if I correctly understand the concept, but how to deal with malicious queries, like long-running queries. Does it affect the system? Yeah.
So I could quickly answer that.
Wonderful.
So if you do a federated SPARQL query with SPO to Wikidata, it'll time out. So that problem is handled more at the remote SPARQL endpoints. So that's not really a problem for Culture in Time. The goal of the user submitted SPARQL is to create just a list of identifiers. So that's how we solved this timeout problem with Wikidata, which was happening a lot in the first iterations of Culture in Time. We were getting a lot of timeouts because we tried to get a lot of data. But the current approach is to just use a simple SPARQL to get a list of URIs, identifiers for a particular class, like performing arts productions. And then there's a content negotiation one by one, which could create a problem. But so far, we haven't seen problems with, I think we can have several hundreds of these. In the performing arts, it's often a smaller subset of data. So hopefully that'll be a good problem to have if we do run into problems with too many performing arts related entities. haven't had it yet.
Great. Thank you. So we have another question for you as well for Culture in Time. The key to unlocking the power of link open data in the performing arts is to link event entities, such as performances, to production entities. At present, production information in Wikidata is rarely made available before the premiere. If production information was made available in Wikidata before the premiere, would we run the risk of Wikimedians considering these items as promotional or not meeting the notability requirements? Very interesting question. Greg, will you be able to answer that? You are muted.
I agree. It's a very interesting question. That's a discussion point. It would be great to have a larger discussion on that point. I don't think there's an immediate answer to that.
Sure, that's great.
It's a lot about the community of Wikidata too. I mean, one of the advantages in arts data is we can have data that is, the upcoming events, but sometimes, the events are very ephemeral, so it makes sense to have them in arts data, not necessarily in Wikidata. But I think it's a question for the Wikimedia, Wikidata community, is how would this be considered promotional or not? It's a very good question. Thanks, Frederick.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so let's move on to the question to Jean-Robert. What are some of the challenges that you've encountered in this project? Maybe you can answer them yourself. Yeah, Jean, please.
Yeah, but I just want to add up to what Greg just said about the timely aspect of upcoming events in Wikidata, whether it's ethical or not to do it. But perhaps I could say that what is arts data actually doing is supplying for the fact that there might be a gray zone within Wikidata to actually deal with such elements. And for me, I would see arts data as a complement to Wikidata, perhaps for ephemeral events or stuff that actually ends with time, and Wikidata could then concentrate on the actual production information that's not timely affected. So maybe arts data has a very long future in front of them. As far as answering the questions with concerns to my own project, the challenges were actually to convince people to use Wikidata in the first place, because it's not yet understood how much what you can actually do with Wikidata, and then we definitely had to work with the idea of, at some point, building a friendly interface to be able to populate the information needed in Wikidata for our own purposes, and this is not done yet. We're still juggling with using Google Sheets, Google Forms, other forms of forms to be able to allow production companies and puppeteers to actually input their information. And the other challenge that we're still facing is that the destination database we're working with, which is PMB, an open source integrated library management system, is not ready to batch import stuff from Wikidata. They're building a query tool to eventually be able to dig into Wikidata, but we might not be able, in the end, to actually go this way. We might have to actually push them CSVs to be able to populate the European portal, while our first idea was to actually simply allow them to run run Sparkle query to actually populate their own database. So it's something that we haven't still fixed. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jean-Robert. Next up, we have questions for openArt browser. What are the data source for the individual motifs and the text? Was the ISA mobile tool used to identify motifs on paintings?
No, actually, the data was all curated by Wikidata. The motif information is called in a reference called depicts. So whatever is being depicted in the animal, we actually display. So it's all curated information by Wikidata. We do not detect anything on images, which we think is makes the quality much better. Now, next question. When one of the paintings was visited in openArt browser, YouTube videos were also shown. The links to those are also retrieved from Wikidata. The answer in this case is no. That's actually the only information which we curated ourselves, and we linked them to the artworks and to the genres, etc. So we went through sites, YouTube sites with art channels, and linked those art channels to the artworks. That's the only curation we did ourselves, actually. Now, could you reuse our timeline framework? And the answer is yes, of course. I mean, openArt browser is open source under GitHub, and I put the link on the slides, but I can also put the link soon later into the chat, and you can use whatever you would like to. A rather technical question. Given a Wikidata Q ID, is there any way I can open the corresponding page in openArt browser? The answer, you mean if I click on one artwork so that I get a direct link to Wikidata? Is that the question? In fact, that's actually one change request or one issue which we have open in GitHub to add this a source link to jump straight to Wikidata. It's a good idea. Thank you. Right. Final 49. One question from Kathleen. I love this application to be able to stroll through the artworks and discover similar or related artworks. A lovely online experience to expand our knowledge of what is out there. How do you choose which items to link and display? There must be so many. Is it keywords, algorithms? Well, in fact, I mean, the data source obviously is Wikidata, so all the links come from Wikidata, but we have algorithms for ranking, because you have an overkill on information, and we use sophisticated ranking in order to, for example, in the auto-completion for the search, to display the 10 most important entities, whatever important means. So we have publications about that where we explain this more in detail. Yeah. And now I think time is up. Thank you for the questions, for the interest.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. I think there's one more question for openArt browser. How often is openArt browser sync with Wikidata? You can answer that. You're muted. Yeah.
And currently once a week.
Once a week. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you all and our dear speakers for the wonderful session. I think we can end the recording for now.